Okay, so we're supposed to be talking about our challenge that we announced a little while ago, where you sort of record your behaviors, right?
hmm
Did we have a name for that or no?
The habit map or something.
Sure. Yeah, we're
No,
supposed to be talking about that, but we don't want to. Because we've been working on our quests, uh, and we're just really, I don't know, we're really into that right now. So we just kind of want to talk about that. Uh, I don't know. Sum up what we're going to talk about.
well, a while ago, at least a month, maybe more, we announced that the podcast has come to fruition now, and now we're gonna take all that we've learned and apply it towards something really important to us. So for me, I'm, trying my hand at building my own software that I think the world needs, and it's my own project that nobody's telling me what to do. And you're building an art universe that you're gonna create this world of Daniel New art that doesn't exist. Uh, so we're just trying to do those things, and they're difficult things because they're things that we've tried to do in the past and have failed at. And so far, knock on wood, it's been working really well, and it's very exciting. And yeah, we just kind of want to talk about that because we actually, after sort of announcing that a little while ago, we haven't really brought it up at all. So
Mm-hmm.
how's it going?
Cold open. Okay, it's been going very well. It's been okay. Well, I all right. Just to give you some idea of what it looks like. I wake up in the morning at about if I'm doing good about 5:15. I try to have this window of when I wake up
When
from
when does the sun come up over there?
uh, I don't know, like 6:30 or something
So
like
you
that.
wake up and there's stars out and it's just
Yeah, it's
pitch
it's
black.
dark. Yep.
Okay, cool. Good job. Thanks.
So I wake up around then, and within 20-30 minutes, I got my coffee, and I'm usually at my drawing table, and I'm working on my stuff, which is wonderful, and it feels really, really good. And then about 45 minutes to an hour later, I gotta go take the dogs out and get breakfast and get ready to go to work. And then that's usually the only amount of time I get to work on it for the whole day. So 45 minutes to an hour every day. So in one way, it's not near enough time. But on the other hand, it still feels really good to just be working on it at all. So I'm happy about that. I don't know
I mean,
how's yours going?
an hour is a hell of a lot more than 0 hours, so that's something.
Yes,
But
I'm thankful. It's just I'm
yeah,
never
no, I get
happy.
it.
I always want more, but
Thankful but never happy. Um, yeah, so a similar deal for me. I get up, I walk the dog, but other than that, like there's basically nothing that happens between me waking up and me getting to do the thing that I want to do. I don't check my phone. I don't get nothing is allowed into my brain in that window of time other than just my cool dog who doesn't need a whole lot, and then I walk around and then I get started, right? And then I do an hour and a half to 2 hours is kind of the window. Ideally, 2 hours of my thing. I walk right to a coffee shop, have my seat that I sit in every time at the window. I get drip coffee and a refill, and then that's me for the next 2 hours. And I work on the thing. And same deal. It feels so nice. It's so nice. I mean, it wasn't necessarily easy at first, especially the getting up at the right time and everything. But once that was pretty established, it's the best part of my day. It feels so peaceful. I feel so focused. It just feels really good. And then it ends, and then I have to go to work, and it sucks.
right. And then the rest of the day. Okay,
Yeah.
so I know we have some concepts that we want to talk about, or some, I don't know, tips and tricks or blah, 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 things that have
Yeah.
kind of kept us on track. But before we do any of that, I just want to know specifics. Like, I know you're programming stuff and you're working on things, but I I kind of just want to know what this week looked like. I mean, just a day in the life of Mike
Yeah.
working on this thing. What does it really look like? So, like, what did you do this week specifically? Forget about what was productive or focused or
Okay. All right. All
whatever.
right. All
Just
right.
what'd you do?
Um,
Whether I understand it or not, because I most likely won't.
so I'm trying to build a software service, whatever you want to call it, um, that does, it's a spaced repetition service. So similar to Anki or SuperMemo or Neurocache, something like that, right? Because that's something that I care deeply about and think is criminally underused by society, right? So I'm working on that. Uh, so this week, the main focus was trying to figure out how to take data that a user creates on their computer and move that to a server. So I have all these ideas about, I want it to be super fast. I want the app to be what they call local first, where you never have to wait for the server to give you data. You can always just open it up and use it immediately. That's actually something that I kind of discovered in my prototyping of this, was that, to me, the one of the core things about spaced repetition, I know I'm kind of jumping around here, but one of the core things is that you can't binge it. By its very nature, you reviewing these things and getting them into your memory permanently has to be something regular. It doesn't have to be every single day. It could be a little less frequent than that, but you can't just pick it up and use the app and go, oh, this is super cool, and spend 6 hours doing a bunch of stuff and then put it away for a month. You can't binge it. It has to be very regular, just this habitual thing that you pull out all the time and just kind of review your stuff or add stuff to it. And I think one of the most important things to make that happen is the ease at which you can initiate that action. So, and we talked about this a long time ago, right? But if you had to swim across a river to like access the slot machine, like every time you wanted to pull the lever, you had to like swim across a river real quick. Nobody would be addicted to gambling because it's just too hard. But they they are addicted to gambling, or you can be, because it's really easy to just, you don't even pull the lever. Like, that's actually too hard for a slot machine. You just push the button. There's always a button right in the front. And so you just stick your money in and then boop, boop, boop. And that little simple action leads you to this reward. And that's the
Right.
principle of, a slot machine, right? Anyway, so that to me is like a really key thing. And when I look at the landscape of software and the stuff that people use, that usually is, some companies understand that extremely well, and they know exactly how to do that. And those are companies like Instagram and TikTok and Facebook and a lot of these mobile games and everything. They know they nail that, where you tap the icon to the app and boom, you're in. Like, you've got some, portrait full. You don't even have to twist your phone because that's too much. Like, that's not easy enough, right? You tap the button and you just see it, and then you're in the app and it's engaging, right? But that is like not even on the radar of productivity software or that kind of thing.
Right.
So, okay. That idea is like one of my very core things. And so I've kind of taken that and thought, all right, how do I want this, is super important to me. How do I build this into the software that I'm making? And unfortunately, it's pretty hard. That's not a normal thing that most software does. Typically, you have, something you open in your web browser or on your phone or whatever, and the app kind of starts up, it logs you in, and then it goes and talks to a server and says, hey, give me whatever you want me to show the user. And the server says, okay, hang on a second. And it like sends it back to the phone or to the computer. And then it kind of loads up and then you see it. And it doesn't usually take super long, but it's long enough to where it just kind of like, yeah, feels a little bit clunky. And I don't like
Right.
that. And so in this like grand quest to solve that problem, I've been watching all these lectures from university professors and reading papers and whatever on this idea of like local first apps and conflict free replicated data types and all this kind of weird stuff, where the idea is that you try to design a system where the user Like you don't treat the server very special. Like the device has all the data and you can always edit it immediately. And then you kind of do all the synchronization in the background where you never wait to get information back from the server. So I am trying to build that system and implement conflict-free replicated data types to where the user opens their thing and it writes all this data to the disk, and then in the background, kind of silently, it's able to send that to the server and like get the stuff that the server has and sort of merge that together without having any problems or conflicts, and then like write that to the disk and update it under the hood and all that kind of stuff. I don't know if any of that makes any sense, but
Yeah, I think it makes sense. But
that was the thing that I was after this week.
when you said you were doing research, in my mind, I was thinking you were going out gambling and watching a lot of TikTok, but I guess you're watching lectures.
I mean,
instead.
there's lessons to be learned from all elements of life, and that's definitely stuff that I think about.
Cool.
So,
So, yeah, man, I don't understand programming at all. I mean, what you
neither
said
do
makes
I.
sense, but like I don't know. It's just hard for me to imagine you sitting down and just like, I don't know, typing in a bunch
Okay.
of
I mean,
alien letters. And
if you want like a real day to day, it's me staring at a terminal which has a bunch of colored text on it, and I'm just typing stuff. And then I like switch over to the other screen, and I don't even use a mouse, so I type the run thing, and I see a bunch of text spit out, and it said this many tests passed and this much data was sent, and I'm like, that sucks, and I go back to the other screen and type more text.
that's crazy.
It looks completely inscrutable to most people. You know what's funny? Like, I'll sit in a coffee shop and everybody's got their laptop out and everybody's doing whatever and nobody knows what anyone else is doing. But they're all in some kind of graphical application. So there's a web browser or something. But I'm sitting there with a plain text terminal. You got like the command line on your computer. You've probably seen it, right? And it's text. It's just words. I'm just typing stuff. It's not any different than, you typing stuff into a web browser or whatever. I'm typing
Oh
stuff.
no, it's definitely
Well,
different.
okay, whatever. But it like fundamentally it's text. But
Yeah.
people all the time will go, like some guy will have a problem with something and they'll come to me. There's 1,000 people in this coffee shop and they come to me like, hey, you seem like you know a lot about computers. I'm like, why? Because I have text. I mean, you're not wrong. Yeah, okay. Like I'm a software developer. I'll help you, but it just happens a lot. People make all kinds of assumptions when you're writing plain
Does
text
that
in a
wait,
terminal.
does that make you upset? Because I feel like it would make you much more upset if they assumed you didn't know anything about computers.
I guess
It's just weird that the fact that they're right seems to make you upset, but
it just feels really silly because ultimately, what's the difference between me typing text into this thing versus somebody typing text into that thing? It's just funny that people make that assumption. I've been asked if I'm a hacker by children before. Like, are you hacking into something? I'm like, yeah, kid. Don't tell
okay,
anyone.
good. Yeah. Cool.
What's your day
okay.
like?
That makes sense. Okay, I can see it now. You get up in the morning, you go to the coffee shop, and you just sit there on your computer and type a bunch of text.
And I hack the mainframe. What do you do?
But all you got to do to stop the hacking is just unplug the computer. If I've learned anything from NCIS or
No.
all right,
What if
okay,
it-
my day to day. But
I'm not going to answer that implied
Right.
question.
my day to day is okay. You kind of know how the way that I do art, or when I go to make a big oil painting, you kind of know my process of how I
Yeah,
come
I've
up
seen
with
you
it.
light things on fire before. I'm not sure how that fits into your process, but that seems to be part of it.
Light things on fire.
Yeah.
You mean I've burned paintings before if they don't turn out good. I just
Okay.
will
Yes.
burn
Those
them. Is that
things,
what you're talking
painting
about?
things.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. One time I did a painting and I didn't like it, so I lit it on fire and burned it. Doesn't mean I'm crazy. I just didn't want it around.
That's what
I didn't
crazy
want to look
people
at it
say.
anymore. Anyway, so before I started working at this job, what I used to do is do these big oil paintings where someone would commission me, say like you would commission me to do a painting.
It was my painting that you burned, by the way, and
Yeah, but it wasn't good enough. So you're welcome. Anyway, I get these commissions to do these oil paintings, and I guess the style would be realism, or whatever. I like things to look real.
Yeah.
So you get an idea and you do a sketch of it, and the sketch is not realistic because I don't know. It just looks like a little thumbnail. I'm sure you've seen these before. Artists will
Yeah.
do little sketches of the overall thing, and it's not convincing. It's just a sketch. Um, but that is sort of your, I don't know, your roadmap for the rest of the process. So the way that I've kind of learned to do it is you do the sketch for the overall idea, right? Um, and I did this one painting for the other brother who commissioned me to do a painting, and it was like this sort of steampunk flying machine, and it was flying over this big sort of fantasy city with like a cathedral in the background, whatever,
Yeah.
and a giant sunset. And so I did, a bunch of little sketches of what I wanted that to look like. And then I didn't know what a flyer should look like or what that would look like or how it would fly or I didn't totally understand how sunsets work or how the lighting works on that. And then I didn't know what type of cathedral I wanted or how to draw that or whatever. So I do the sketch of the general idea. And then you just kind of list out the elements in the scene. And then you just start researching and studying each element.
This is
And you
this
do
is the realism part, right? Like you're trying to figure out,
yeah.
okay, if I want to make a kite, what does a kite really look like? And
Yeah, if
I
you
don't know.
want your end result to be convincing and you want people to be convinced that it could be real, you know, you have to do a lot of research in order to back that up. So all the steps after this initial thumbnail are working to support that idea. So there's a lot of research that goes into this type of picture and in this tradition of sort of doing the sketch and working it up all the way to the finished project is been around for hundreds of years. Uh, so a couple things that you do is you do a lot of research. So I looked at a lot of Da Vinci flying machines and stuff like that, and I drew out a bunch of ideas for those, and I kind of invented this little flying machine. It probably wouldn't work in real life, but I thought it looked cool.
I thought it looked cool
And then
too.
I made a little model of it, out of cardboard and armature wire and whatever, so I could hold it up in a sunset and see how the light works on it because I
Cool.
couldn't really picture it.
Yeah.
So I took it out into the sunset and I'm holding it there and looking at it and kind of see how it's, sort of, colored on the wings and whatever. And then I didn't really understand sunsets, so you end up learning all about sunsets and how, there's different layers in the atmosphere that kind of splits the light differently and you get these different gradations of stuff and there's an order to them or whatever. I don't totally remember, but spent a bunch of time learning about colors of the sunset and how that all works. And then I read like an entire book because I didn't really have a deadline on this. I read a whole book on architecture and cathedrals and all that. And it's like that's one of the funnest parts of the artistic process is just
Yeah.
you finally have an excuse to learn about all this stuff. So you do sketches of all the different elements, you put it together, you do like a final drawing. You could do like a tonal drawing where you figure out, lights and darks, whatever. Like you do color studies, figure out your color palette, and then you put it all together and you do the damn painting. So where I'm at right now is I've decided for the first time in almost 6 years to do another one of these oil paintings, which is to me just, I love doing these and I haven't done them in so long. This is where my heart lies. Whereas,
Okay.
when I'm at my job, I'm doing very quick digital concept art where I'm just slapping stuff together. I don't have time to do the research, to do that type of in-depth research and make the picture look really pretty. It's just like as best you can in the short amount of time possible, throw stuff together, get it done, get it out.
Right.
And it's all digital where my heart lies in the oil paints. So what I'm doing right now is I'm just doing a big painting. In fact, well,
Oh, are we gonna see something?
no, you're not. But this is the board.
Oh,
This
okay.
is
Beautiful.
this is the
Thanks for showing us
size.
that.
It's the size of the board. I haven't. Yeah, I'm not showing you the drawing on it
What's
yet.
what's on the
Um,
other side?
okay, so well, I'm not going to show you.
That was sort
When
of
I
disappointing. Okay.
when I finish it, I don't want to commit to this, but when I finish it, maybe I'll hang it up in the background or something like that.
You can hang it
Um,
farther away or closer depending on how much you like it.
Right. I'll let the depth perception blur it out in the
Right.
background. But
Right.
anyway, I'm doing a giant oil painting. Haven't done it in a long time. So the scene, I'm not going to describe it too much, but it's set in the 1920s. It's got these two kids in it, and they're on bikes, right? 1920s kids on bikes. They're on the beach or whatever, and they come across this thing. So the last week, if we're just talking about the last week, I'm sort of in the research phase and the make models phase and the shoot reference. So I'm trying to study all the different elements. So I'm watching documentaries on the 1920s. I'm learning about what these kids would wear, just all this stuff, and it's so much fun. I love this aspect of this whole thing. So I don't know what this has to do with anything, but I'm searching for reference. I'm going to pose for one of the kids in the picture and just shoot some reference so I kind of know how the pose works. Of course, I have to change it because I don't look like a kid. But you just kind of understand how the pose works a bit better and how the lighting works on the clothes and whatever. So I have to find like 1920s clothes. And I know there's all kinds of places online where you can order stuff. But I'm like, I just want to go, find it in a thrift store or an antique store or something, so I can see it, and then I'll just grab a pair of pants and some shoes and like a shirt that could work for it and a hat or whatever. So I get my wife and we go out to a thrift store, and I'm thinking, because this is Saturday, and I'm thinking that this will just be real quick. Like we'll run out, get some reference stuff, run back home, shoot the reference, and then I'll just be back to drawing. And like this will be a really wonderful day of just working on my thing, right? Like this is Saturday. I finally get to spend some time on it. So we go to the first thrift store, and there's just nothing there, which was surprising to me. I thought for sure they'd have some old looking shoes or hat or whatever, but they don't. So we go to another thrift store and another one. We go to every thrift store in town. They're not there. So I'm like, oh, well, I could go home, but it's such a waste of time. So I was like, well, would you mind if we drove, 45 minutes to Mount Dora, which is like the center hub of antique stores? She's like, no, that's fine. We can go. So we drive all the way over there, and it's this huge antique store. I mean, it's enormous. And they got everything, except for what I want. They did have one hat, and I found one hat, which I could have just bought on Amazon for a cheaper price. But I got the hat, drove all the way back home. The entire day was just spent buying this single hat. And so that's what it's like to be an artist, I guess. That's the day-to-day life of being an artist. And then, yeah. So.
But you didn't shop on Amazon, so it's all worth it.
Right. Well, I did later for some other things, but normally during the week, I am doing sketches, doing research, doing other types of drawings. I'm building a model right now. Painted it yesterday. Yeah, just drawing, researching, building stuff, whatever. It's just really fun.
It sounds like you don't paint much. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, I mean, I would say 80% of the process is not painting before the painting.
Pretty interesting.
Although the painting may take me forever. I don't know. That could take a really long time, but that's what I'm doing now.
It sounds super fun. I mean, I'm sorry that you struck out on the thrift stores, but that is how it
but
goes.
I still really just I don't know, love doing that. But okay, let's get into some helpful things
Okay, all right.
Well, I got a question. What are some ways that you find keep you sort of consistent or keep you in the right mind state of of working, because we have to do this every day, right? Like
Yeah.
you got to be working on this stuff every day. So how do you keep yourself sort of in line, from going too far off one direction or the other?
Okay. So that's a big question, and it's harder. So okay, what we're both trying to do is this thing that it might work and it might not, you know? And in either case, it'll be forever. Nothing is going to be done in 2 weeks, right? We're talking a long time span. So the only goal right now, at least, is to make that an enjoyable process, because there's no concrete promise of any real reward, at least monetary. You can't count on any of that. If you think that way, it'll drive you insane. So it has to be fun. You have to like doing it and driving to thrift stores and looking for 1920s hats and whatever. And I have to, I mean, it just sounds weird, but I have to enjoy watching lectures from the leading researcher on CRDTs and whatever. Like, it has to be fun for me. Or else just forget it. Like, there's no way, right? So the main goal there, I think there's lots of kind of subcategories here, but the main goal has to be that it feels really good to do it. And a lot goes into that, actually. I think a lot of little things kind of add up to making it feel really good, and you almost start to forget about them once they're all in place. But that is like the primary thing for me, is lining all this stuff up to where it just feels really good to do it. Like, main goal. And some of the specific things, if that's kind of what you're asking, is we've talked a little bit about willpower before, and I think one of the things that we both have noticed about this process, like from the times that we've talked about it, has been that once you're kind of in the groove, there is no willpower, or very little, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
you don't feel like you're having to grit your teeth and power through, your hour
No,
sessions in the morning, right?
no, this was one major point that I wanted to bring up too, is that I, I wrote down, like, where is the willpower? Like, I don't feel like I'm forcing myself to do any of this. Well, okay,
Yeah.
that's not true. Some things you really have to, push yourself a bit on, but I don't know, like, overall, in the past I've done, like, more extreme workout routines, or you try to train for some event, or whatever, or
Yeah.
with art stuff. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna work on this every single day. It's, I got to spend all my time on it, and I don't feel any, like, extreme determination, or any extreme emotions really towards
Mhm.
this. It's not like I'm brute forcing my way to wake up on time and get to work. I'm just going to bed on time, and then it's usually pretty easy to wake up at the right time and get started. Like, there's no big threshold I have to get
Right.
through. So yeah, it's very strange to me that there just seems to be no, I don't know, no use of a willpower here. It's just kind of like routine. It's
Yeah. To me, the really key thing there is that, so we both do this first thing in the morning, and that feels like okay, yeah, you do it in the morning, or you could do it in the evening, or you could do it whenever, right? But
right.
doing it first, like really first thing, I mean, like I said, I walk the dog, I kind of wake myself up, I walk to a coffee shop, but then that's it, and I do it. And what's so great about that is that there's no decisions to be made. I wake up, at the same time, and some of what has gone into that is building the environment in a way where it just removes as many decisions as possible. So, my alarm goes off at 7:30, and the lights come on at 7:30, and the dog, who is very in tune with timings and circadian rhythms, wakes up at exactly 7:30. I mean, he can just, the moment I start to wake up, he senses that, and then like jumps in the bed and is like, "Hey, cool, you're gonna feed me. We're gonna go for a walk because it's the time." And it's very hard to keep sleeping when the lights come on and there's a dog in your face and everything. And so that just after a little while becomes a non-issue of just okay, it's just when I wake up. And so we get up and we do the walk, and I can't not walk him. That's just he's a dog. He has to be walked or he won't leave me alone. So it's just kind of like all automated. And then
Hmm.
I don't sit down, at home on the couch or whatever and start thinking, should I play a video game today or should I start work today or whatever? It just none of those choices are there. Like I said, don't even look at my phone. Don't let anything enter my mind that could get me thinking about something else. I just go to the coffee shop, I order my same coffee, I sit down in my same seat, and then I just start working. And it's like the process sounds so simple, but in a lot of ways it's not because, or I mean, it could be a lot more complicated. If I tried to make myself work for 2 hours on this project every day after I got finished with my normal job, that sometimes could run late or sometimes be early or sometimes I have to leave for an appointment or whatever, then it becomes chaotic and I have to make all these choices. And my mental state could be all kinds of different things. I might be really stressed or I might be really frustrated or who knows what, right? There's all these choices that go into that. Going to sleep at the same time, waking up at the same time, making choices to create an environment that leads to that being really simple and consistent, all that stuff plays into that 2 hour session feeling really comfortable and really easy and really willpower free. But it's like all these little puzzle pieces have been set up around it that I don't even think about.
Hmm.
And that's what really makes that work, I think. I don't know what I mean. What's your feeling?
Yeah, absolutely. I also don't look at my phone um, in the morning before I get started. It keeps my mind clear.
Yeah.
I have the coffee, set the night before, so I can just grab it and go. Say hi to your cat for me.
I don't,
Um,
she's like screaming at me for no reason. And she's about to scream at me for closing the door.
oh well. Well, okay. Going.
Let's introduce the cat. This is Ruby. Say hi.
That's Ruby.
Yeah.
Hello, Ruby.
Okay.
She has a lot to say on this.
Yeah. I hope that wasn't distracting. Keep going.
Right. I can't remember what the hell I was going to say. Oh, okay. Going back to the decisions. When you wake up and you go right into to working on your stuff and you have this routine, you said you don't have any decisions to make. It's all kind of there and you just do it. I can hear people saying, "Oh, well, aren't you just a drone? Like I prefer a free lifestyle and I like to make, my own decisions in the moment or whatever." And it sounds like if you were to have a morning where you don't make any decisions and you just go through this routine, like, oh, isn't that monotonous? Isn't that boring? But I find it to be the complete opposite. And where I mentioned this to you a while ago is that when you have to make a decision, it's almost as if that decision making process doesn't end after the decision is made, because say you're looking for the what coffee shop to go into. You would think that that feeling of making a decision would end as soon as you walk in the coffee shop. But actually, you go into the coffee shop, you sit down, you order something, you start thinking, oh man, maybe I should have gone to that other coffee shop. Or maybe I should have gone over here, wherever. And that feeling of uneasiness stays with you for the whole time, sometimes. Um, and so when you wake up in the morning and you are faced with this decision of, well, what do I do? Maybe I should start working on my thing. Well, no, I want to wait until after work to work on that so I can have more time. Or, well, maybe I should wait until I get my coffee. No, maybe I should eat breakfast first and then get started. Or, whatever. You just go through uh, all of these different possibilities. But then as soon as you pick one, you're stuck thinking, well, maybe I should have done this. I should have done that, whatever. And it just keeps going. So when you finally develop a morning routine where you're no longer having to worry about what to do, you just get to do it. It's a wonderful feeling. It's really nice.
I love that concept when you brought that up. I had never thought about that before, but the residual effects of making a decision can be like a very real thing where you're wondering, should I be doing this? Should I be doing something else? Or it pollutes your mind a little bit. And the kind of mantra almost, or just the thing that I'm after for that 2 hour session where I work on this project is I want an intense but relaxed focus. Like that's how I
Right.
would describe the mental state. So I can't be distracted. It's almost incredible how much not just time gets wasted by being distracted, but just how much it constantly interrupts your flow. It prevents you from being able to think all the way through to the end of a problem or whatever. It's almost like there's this loading bar, like for every problem you solve, it's got to like start here and it's got to get to there,
Yeah.
and every time you get distracted it jumps back to the beginning. And so like maybe you
Mm-hmm.
get 80% and then 50% and then 70, like you don't solve it that way, because you have to get to the end and you need unbroken focus. Anyway, you have to be focused. But the problem with like focus is it's not. I'm trying
Like,
to talk about
right.
focus and not being distracted.
Bye, Ruby.
Good Lord, that was so unhelpful.
It's very demonstrative though.
I lost my focus and got very distracted. Okay. Focus by itself, it sounds like it's just great. Like you want more of it. More is better. Super, super focused all the time. But it's not always so great, because focus can also come with like stress and anxiety almost. You can get hyper focused to where you can't unfocus, and it can actually be a very bad state of mind. Uh, and then just in general, you make good choices and you see things clearly when you feel relaxed, when you're able to just kind of, you're not judging or sort of hyper analyzing and everything. You're having this comfortable, rational, relaxed experience. And those two things can almost be a little bit at odds with each other. I found this playing StarCraft a lot. It's actually a huge problem to try and solve playing competitive video games, but it applies to everything. Is this balance between being relaxed and then also being focused. But anyway, that's the mental state that I'm after during this work session. And so there's a lot that goes into trying to get into that relaxed, intense focus state. Um, One of the pretty obvious things is not letting anything distract you or start to occupy your mind going into it. You don't look at stuff, don't check your phone, don't look at news headlines or anything before. I don't know why this is, and you've said that you've experienced this too, but it's like when you wake up in that little window of time, right at the beginning of the day, it's like anything
Mm-hmm.
you're exposed to just fills your mind. Your mind is just wide open, and then the silliest thing will just completely take over your thoughts. Uh, and I want that thing to be the thing that I care about and I'm interested in, not some random thing that I saw on the internet.
Yeah.
But
And it very often, for me, I've had times where I open my phone and I'll read a Discord message, and then that that topic or whatever, that thing
mhm.
will stay in my head for the entire day, and it's like all I can think about. It's really weird.
Yeah,
But it happens all the time. So starting off the day with the thing that you want to do is just, it's amazing.
yeah.
And it usually sticks with you for the whole day.
So yeah. So just to kind of sum up that thought, relaxed, intense focus requires you to you know remove distractions. It's usually not too, in the morning I find it to be the easiest. And that's part of why I think doing this thing first thing in the morning is really helpful, is that I feel like I can get into that mental state the most easily in the morning, whereas the fatigue builds up as the day goes on,
Right.
and then it becomes harder, where you maybe you can focus but you can't be relaxed while you're focused because there's a lot of this fatigue and everything. um so anyway, that that just seems to be like a great formula. Sleep well, consistent time to start. You kind of eventually your body gets into this rhythm where your energy starts to build at the same time, and it's a very familiar process, and you're kind of in sync with what you're doing and what your body is doing. And then you aren't making a lot of choices and having to spend your thoughts on that or analyzing whether you're doing the right thing at the right time or whatever. It's just this really smooth, simple, almost thoughtless process to get into that mode. And then you're able to just let your mind go on the thing you want it to be on. That's what it feels like to me.
So there's a few other things that I've been trying to do differently this time around, because I've actually tried to do this many times in the past, with having this job, and it something always comes up where, okay, so here's an example. Almost exactly 1 year ago, I started another oil painting, at the same, almost the same size as this one, and very,
Yeah.
very similar circumstances. It didn't even occur to me till the other day. I was flipping through some papers and I'm like, oh my god, I had this exact same plan last year and I
Oh no.
failed. So I'm on this parallel path, and I really hope this one continues further than that one did. But I did all the research stage and all of that, and then I got to the final drawing, and after the final drawing, you do the painting. But I'm in the final drawing stage, and I can't figure out if I want to do oil paints or gouache, which is the other medium that I've used before, or do I want to do it digitally because that's faster, and I'm not sure if I have enough time. So I had this decision of oil paints, gouache, or digital, and I could not come up with an answer because I'm thinking, well, if I do it digitally, it's way faster, so I have a better chance of getting it done. But that doesn't really do it for me, and it's not really fulfilling for me. So maybe I'll do it in oil. Well, that takes too long. What if I can't finish it that way? I'll just do it in gouache. Well, I've never really done a gouache painting at that size before, so could I actually do it anyway? And I'm just like stuck in between all of
Yeah.
these three. And it it paused the project. And then I ran into some other problems, and then I got distracted with something else, and then I never finished it. And it stalled. So with this one, I had that moment of, should I do it digitally or oil? And I'm like, nah, screw it, I'll just do oil. And I made that decision right away. And I tried to keep this very flippant attitude of,
Yeah.
okay, whatever. I don't care if it's scary. I don't even care if I never finish it. I'm just going with oil. That's what I'm doing. I'm making that decision. I'm not going to think too much about what's right or what's wrong or whatever. So I just chose oil. And then I'm faced with this decision of, well, should I do it really small, so maybe it's quicker, or should I do it big? But well, that's what I really want to do, but like that could take way too long, or I don't know. So I'm like, screw it, I'll just do it really big. So I grab the biggest board that I have, and that's what I'm going to do it on, and I'm not going to waste any time with that bouncing back and forth with the decision. And so I'm stuck with this now. Uh, Whether it actually works out or not, I don't know yet, but I'm not going to waste time on making those decisions. And I remember when I was, writing music and trying to be a musician, I would write a song and then think, oh, well, it's not good enough, so I need to rewrite it. And then I would rewrite it, and I would keep rewriting it over and over and over again,
Mm-hmm.
just indefinitely. Come up with 100 different versions of the same damn song, and none of them would be good enough. And then it would just end, and that's it. So with this, I'm trying to just make decisions and move forward. And every time I feel that buildup of
Mm-hmm.
the anxiousness or uncertainty about which one's better, I'm not really sure. I just forget it. Just pick one and keep moving forward. So I'm trying to weed out any of that anxiousness from the whole process. Once again, I don't know how it's going to turn out, but so far it's kept me moving forward.
You know what's kind of funny about that? So I've had this observation just kind of in the back of my head for a long time, but I've seen certain people who are, by my definition and probably most other people's too, really, really productive. They do things or build things that I'm just kind of blown away with. Uh, for example, I'm building a software using a programming language called nim, and I love the language. I love the design philosophy behind it. And it's, I mean, there was a lot of people that have contributed to it, but it was created by one guy. His sort of internet name is Iraq, which is actually awesome because that is a character from StarCraft Brood War. So that just really resonates with me. But this guy, he's done incredible work and, built this language up from zero. And I really like all the decisions he's made, for the most part anyway. But he's also coordinating with the community, and people are sending in, they call them like pull requests and stuff, but basically like changes that they want to contribute to the code, and he has to kind of analyze that stuff and decide if it's good or bad or whatever. And so you get to see a lot of the dialogue that this guy will have around different features or different ideas and whatever. And this guy's just an example. I've seen this many, many times over for other software projects or for all kinds of stuff, companies, everything. And you could almost say that he's a bit of a jerk sometimes. And I wouldn't say that, but I think people kind of feel that way because he'll just kind of say stuff like, no, we're not doing that. It's not worth it. Or somebody, maybe they spend a whole bunch of time building some feature and then submitting it and saying, okay, I've thought through this and I put all this work in and here's how I think this ought to work. And he goes, I don't like it. We're not going to do that. Or you hear some ideas presented and he'll just go, oh, I like this. This is cool. We're doing this. And it's these really quick decisions that it feels kind of flippant almost. And I've, like I said, I've seen this in so many cases for people like this. And I think it's actually a really key part of what makes somebody able to build an entire programming language out of nothing, or a display manager, or to run a company, or whatever it is you're talking about. It's this ability to make decisions. It's like exactly when you have the information you're going to have. And then you just make the choice. And that's it. Right? Like you can agonize over gouache or oil or digital or oil or gouache or whatever. Like you can sit there and oscillate back and forth, but like you're not doing anything. All you're doing is making yourself not relaxed, which, like I said, is actually really important. So the options, you think through them, and then you make the choice. And I think that flippant attitude does not come naturally to me, and probably not to you either.
No.
But I think it's really key. And what helps with that, I think, also is that if you make decisions really quick and you just kind of go, yeah, I'm doing this and I'm going to make it happen. Let's say you decided, you know what, I'm going to make the painting small. And then you get into it and you go, you know what, I don't like this. I'm going to make it big. And you throw it away and you start making it big. Like, okay, yeah, that sucks. You wasted time, I guess. But at the same time, if you aren't agonizing over all the decisions and you're just doing stuff, it's not that bad because you're able to pivot pretty quick. And like you look at the programming language design, and they build features, then go, you know what, this didn't work out that well. We learned some lessons though. Let's do it this way. And it's just this really quick, dismissal of, nope, that was a bad idea. We're doing something else. And on the whole, it winds up progressing way faster than people like me who sit there and agonize back and forth over these decisions and wind up not getting anywhere, or worse, like what happened to you last year, where you just don't do it because you can't, the decisions just kill you and you can't make it any further.
Yes. 100 times yes. I've had this suspicion that that's been a major downfall of mine. Not just a suspicion. I know this for a fact. Because if I look back, maybe 6 months to a year ago, I started re-listening to some of my old music from high school, a little bit after, whatever. And I'm looking at all these songs, or listening to all these songs, and I'm like, this was pretty good. Like, this one totally sucks, this one totally sucks, but this one, it's not that bad. And I remember thinking, oh, it needed to be rewritten another 100 times. And I would put together a playlist of 10 songs that I wanted to turn into an album. But then I'm like, no, I need another song and another song. And then I'm like, well, now the original songs aren't good enough. I need to rewrite an entire new set of 10 or whatever. And I would just keep going forever and ever and never really finish a song and never really finish anything
Right.
because I would just obsess about what's the best because I want it to be the best thing ever. But the thing is that constant, I don't know, stressing about what's the best course of action, that stops you from learning, and it stops you from making progress. It just keeps you in one spot. It ruined so much for me. Whereas if I had just finished, 10 songs, put out an album, and then gone to the next one and
Hmm.
made an album and learned from that and then gone to the next one, I would have learned so much. I don't know. There's a point where you just gotta like put a stake in it and then go to the next
Hmm.
thing. And so with this whole quest, I'm trying to just make decisions very quickly and see what happens with it,
Right.
and see if that changes things for me. Because that obsession with having the perfect piece or the perfect whatever, it has clearly not worked out for me in the 32 years I've been alive. Like, maybe we can trash that way of thinking and actually do something.
Yeah, and it's it's really a bait because you don't end up with something that's you end up with nothing. That's usually what
Right.
happens is
And imperfect is better than nothing. Yeah.
right. Well, and also just what's the perfect song?
Right. Yeah, it
Right,
doesn't
name a
make any sense.
song that doesn't isn't hated by somebody, right? You just
Okay, here's an example. When I was doing that painting with sunset and the little flyer thing and the cathedral and all that, I remember this one painting took me an entire year, okay? A whole year. That doesn't mean it
yeah.
was so spectacular. It means that this way of thinking, of obsessing over what's right, what's wrong, whatever, what's the best course of action, it's so time consuming that this one painting took me an entire goddamn year. And I still wasn't happy with it. But I remember specifically the sunset, which is, it was the same size board as that. So it's like, it's big, okay? And
Yeah.
the sunset takes up like half the image, right? So I remember I would go outside to the park and I would see a sunset. And I'm like, that's the one. That's the sunset I want for my painting. So I would like snap a picture, take some notes, whatever, observe it, whatever. And then I would start painting it like that night or whatever. And I'd get halfway done. And then I'd go see another sunset. I'm like, oh my God, that's the one. That's it. And so I'd take a picture, take notes, whatever. And then I would scrape off the old painting and start all over again. And I did this so many times. And I realized that new stuff always looks more sparkly and flashier than the old stuff because
Novelty
it's,
problem.
yes, it's the new sunset is this novel thing I've never seen before. The old one, well, I've been looking at it for the last week. So this new one's definitely better. And I just did that over and over and over again until the paints are just like ruined and any attempt at freshness is just lost. And that was a big lesson for me. But
Yeah.
I need to continue learning it because it's just the first one would have been just as good as the last one because it's just a damn sunset. Like, just pick one, do it, and move on. And yeah, that's what I'm trying to learn with this painting too. It's just you make a decision, stick to it, and then move on.
it's it's tough because the mental grooves are worn pretty deep, you know.
Yeah.
Like you tend to approach things a certain way and it's not necessarily easy to change it, but um I think the way you describe that of just having a flippant attitude is really
Well,
key.
okay, so that was 6 years ago, and since then I've been working in a job where I don't have time to second guess things. I make decisions, and I do this every week, and I produce a painting, and I've never missed a deadline, and it just like
Yeah.
I put out consistent work. I'm always making decisions because I don't have that choice. But when I'm left to my own devices, I
Right.
run into these problems. Um, so I I gotta find ways, and I think talking to you about it and just constantly assessing this is certainly helpful. But I wonder if there's more concrete ways of making sure that I don't do that, um, where I don't just obsess about one thing. I don't know. Do you have this problem? Are you
Yeah.
currently seeing this in any of your work, or?
Um, so you could kind of slice this up a few different ways. Um, that problem of making decisions, I think, is really tough, right? Something that's related to that, I've been recently been thinking about this a lot. I've been calling it the proximity problem, or the proximity effect, I guess maybe you could say. You know, just stuff that's right in front of you feels really important. And stuff that you're not looking at or really thinking about, that doesn't feel important at all. And okay, you said that for your art universe, you kind of picked a painting and you said, okay, I'm going to make this painting, and that's what I'm going to work on first, right?
Right.
So you sliced out this little piece of the universe and said, this is what I work on. And so that's what's in front of you, and that's what you think about. And pretty soon that feels like everything. That
Mm-hmm.
consumes all your thoughts. And so everything in that painting just feels really important. I know I'm kind of putting words in your mouth here, but
Oh,
that's what it feels
yeah,
like for me, right? Like I'm trying to build this big piece of software, and so I take out this little slice of, okay, here's what I'm going to do for this piece of it that the user's going to see right here. And then before long, that just becomes a whole universe. And I'm not thinking about the server side. I'm not thinking about the web client. I'm not thinking about marketing or, anything, right? That
right.
consumes me. And so pretty quickly, that just starts to feel way more important than it really is, because it's really just a piece of a whole thing. And you just start to get obsessed. And I mean, there's those decisions have to be made, and they can feel like a way bigger deal than they really ought to be. Or you just start investing too much time doing one thing when you have all this other stuff, and the actual importance of this thing in front of you is not nearly as much as it feels like. So that's the proximity effect. The best way to combat that I've found, because this actually bit me pretty hard this week. I got really sucked into one thing, without getting into the weeds. Basically, I wound up wasting a lot of time, like many hours, trying to solve this one problem without realizing that I didn't need to solve that problem, because my actual grand scheme plan was to not use this technique anyway. I'd kind of like built something very temporary just to sort of make it work for right now, and it wasn't working. And so I start like trying to fix all this stuff, like, oh, why isn't it working, and why are we leaking memory and something. And I totally lost sight that, oh my god, this isn't even the plan, this is just some temporary thing. Forget about it, build it the right way, and then this isn't even a problem, it's not even relevant, right? Anyway, I made that mistake this week, and it was a pretty big mistake. It cost me a lot of hours, and you know it didn't make me feel good at the end of it, where you just think, man, I really wrecked this week. So the best thing that I found to try to help with that is to kind of force yourself to completely switch context sometimes, and go back to the big picture, or at least just a, a distant part of it, so that you're
Right.
kind of forced to think, oh man, there's this whole world over here that I've been ignoring, and why don't I think these things are important? But I do think these things are important, and like it kind of broadens your perspective and helps a lot. So that's been really helpful to me. I think that, I mean, is that what you're asking? Is that
Well,
relevant?
no. Well, I'm about to ask, but so for me, yeah, I've zoomed into this one painting. I have totally written off these bigger plans of, frequent new paintings, and they all should be cohesive and have, connecting plot lines and be, all exist in the same world, and, they're all the characters are all related, they know each other, whatever. Gotten rid of all of that and just focused on this one painting because I think it's kind of necessary for me to just get started. Like I need to have a painting done so I know how long paintings take and I can,
Right.
assess after that. But in doing that, I've zoomed into this painting and then each part just kind of continually expands, and all of a sudden the figures need all this research and they need a lot of attention, and that can take 2, 3, 4 weeks, and then the environment needs all this attention, and I keep zooming into all of these different areas, and then I'm doing research, and then they're not good enough, I need to make them better, and then this one painting ends up expanding just to this enormous size. So I like what you said, and well, now you're orange.
I know we're going late tonight. I didn't expect that.
But I like that way of thinking, is that you need to periodically zoom out and see the bigger picture. So I'm wondering, God, you keep changing colors. It's
I'm
like
sorry.
a nightclub in
It's-
there.
We're
Should get
back.
a little
It's
disco
fine.
ball or something.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you schedule that? Are you just kind of in the last 10 minutes of the day trying to zoom out and think about it? Or do you have a whole day where you focus on the bigger picture?
Good question. So what I've kind of been doing is I spend that 2 hour chunk pretty much working on one thing, in the morning. And then I stop and I go into other stuff. And I mean I stop, but like I think about this stuff. Sometimes I go for a walk and I'm wondering
Yeah.
about what I'm doing or whatever, right? And those times when I'm not actively working on it, I'm just kind of thinking, oh, that's when I might make those choices of, you know what, tomorrow, server side, that's all we're doing. Or, okay, tomorrow we're going to do, UX or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Uh, so I don't I don't schedule it like on Thursdays is big picture mode and the rest are, whatever else. But I do think I try to use the moments of just not working on it, but just usually it's a walk or taking a shower where I'm just kind of thinking about it, to try to reflect and try to kind of think more about the big picture. We said before how you can almost kind of put yourself in the mindset of different people in a company where you're
Hmm.
the engineer or you're the project manager. And I said a bunch of very nasty things about project managers. And I just want to say,
No, you said they
I
were like
stand by all of that.
unicorns.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Um, or you could be the CEO or the marketing person, whatever. So I think in a way I'll kind of get into that mode of, okay, I'm the CEO now, or I'm the engineering lead, and let's think about all the things that are going to need to be done here. And so let's put the engineer on this project tomorrow or something like that.
Yeah.
Regardless, just I don't have a schedule for it, but forcing myself to kind of make these big context switches and to just see a different area of the project, I have found to be very helpful for several different reasons. One is to broaden your focus, where you don't suffer from that proximity effect so much, where like you said, you erased and restarted a sunset a bunch of times and wound up with a sunset.
Right.
And that's not good. Like that's a pretty big example, but there's smaller versions of that same thing where you keep agonizing over one thing, and I like that's fine. That's the mode you're in. You're in tight focus mode where you're staring at the painting and you're really hyper analyzing, and you need to be. That's how you do good work. But I just think you should try putting yourself somewhere way far away for a while, maybe a different painting or even a whole different area. I don't know what that means exactly, but something totally different, and then come back to it and just see how it feels. You might just
I
go,
like that.
wow, this was way better than I thought, or this is not as important as I thought. Just the perspective changes a lot there.
I I love that. I just have to keep it from distracting. Um,
I
like I don't want it to overtake that, because I feel like I'm at risk of that happening. If I
Yeah.
was to start another painting, I might end up abandoning this one and going full force on that one, and then just kind of.
Well,
But no, I like your thinking. I don't want to come up
but
with.
I wonder if that's. I mean, your goal is not to make a painting. I mean, it is right now, I know, but if you walk away from this and go, I spent 7 months and I made one painting, you failed. That wasn't the plan. That's
Oh,
not the
God
main
damn it.
quest. That's some little sub quest on the main quest, right? Like
Yeah.
your goal is to build this thing. For me, I have this very specific idea in mind of what I want a space repetition service to be. And I want it to have a command line interface. I want it to have an iPhone app and an Android app and a web client and a server and all these different things. And I have this list of features that I want it to have. And like, that's it. That's the goal. If I build some random thing that sort of works and it works on a single command line client, that's not it. I failed. So if you're worried about switching to a different piece of art and then not being able to come back, that's a problem. Like you got to do all this. So you have to be able to move around. I mean, I totally understand your reasoning of, okay, I'm going to build this thing first and that'll teach me some lessons, but in a way it doesn't matter what the lessons are cuz you got to do all of it. That's the plan.
You're right.
Sorry.
Okay. I want to end with that. I really like that.
All right.
All right. The thinking of bigger picture. I need to go to bed. I can wake
Okay,
up early.
fair enough.
and
Yeah,
do
we
this.
went late tonight. Okay. Any closing thoughts? Or we just leave it hanging on me getting weirdly angry for no reason?
Um, that wasn't weirdly angry. That was great. I really like that. Um, yeah, especially the 7 month. If it takes me 7 months to do this, I've failed. I can totally see this taking 7 months. So I'm at risk for that. But
Okay.
But yeah, okay. I like that line of thinking. I just want to throw this out there. With the last month, it's been about a month of us doing this, or with me doing this, and it's felt really good. It's very exciting, and it feels really great to just be moving along every single day, even if it's a very short amount of time, 45
Yeah.
minutes or whatever in the morning. It doesn't feel like enough, but it still feels like progress. It's progress, and that is really exciting. However, I've also been, because this is the thing, like this is the scary thing. This is it. Like I can't name something else that I'd rather be doing, or
Right.
this is the thing. And every time I do a drawing or put something on the board, I mean, that is how good I am or how bad I am. That's where I'm at right there. I can't give any excuses. I can't say, oh, well, whatever. This is just client work. It's their fault. It looks bad. It's
Right.
like, nope, I did that. I chose to do that. That's the best I can do. And it feels very uncomfortable. It feels uh, it hurts at times, and it feels like this massive reality check.
Yeah.
It feels scary, but at the same time, it feels right. In the same way that, if you do a really hard workout or whatever, you can feel really sore and be in some extreme pain, if you haven't done it in a while or whatever. But you know oh man, now we're in corny territory, but you know that pain means that you put in the effort. And so I just want to also mention that this is a painful thing. Like, or I don't know if painful is the right word, but I have a lot of doubts in myself, in my abilities. It is exciting to see improvement, but at the same time, it's like, oh my God, like maybe I'm not as good as I thought I was, or I should be, or like maybe this is it. But yeah, I guess I just want to state that it's still scary, and
Yeah.
I still have a lot of doubts about the whole thing. But
Here's
yeah,
so here's been my way of dealing with that, because that can get very intense. Uh and it hasn't really lessened as it's gone on. I mean, it's it can oscillate between feeling really excited, where you're thinking this is amazing, I get
yep,
to make this beautiful thing that I've been dreaming of, and then it can also switch to, holy crap, this is insane, and I thought I was great, but maybe that's fantasy, and it's a lot, and you don't have any crutches or anything you can kind of hide behind if I didn't have enough time or I didn't care that much or whatever, right?
right,
So just kind of going back to that original point of the mental state that I want is intense but relaxed focus. And when you are being crushed by the weight of your value as a person and your art and everything, you're not relaxed. That's not how you do relaxed, enjoyable things and have a flippant attitude and just cruise through it, right? So it's, I think, very important to, like, those thoughts happen. There's no escaping that. Of course, you're going to have those moments of evaluating yourself, and you're going to have these moments of dread and excitement, and that's cool. That's fine. But, and I don't mean to act like I'm good at this or anything, but it's just something I've been working on and practicing, is just knowing that those are fine, but they do not help you when you're trying to work and be effective. And so you just have to kind of take them and set them aside and go, I'll think about this later maybe, but for right now, I only get an hour, or I only get 2 hours. So I'm just gonna, that's just not what I'm thinking about right now. I need to be focused, and that's gonna keep me from being focused. And I need to be relaxed, and that's gonna keep me from being relaxed. So it's like the worst thing to be thinking about while you're sitting there working on your thing. So just like over there, those thoughts can kind of chill, and you just do your thing, whether it's excitement or dread or whatever, like either way.
Yeah. And I think having that cap off, I can't spend my whole day thinking about this, even though I want to, but
Yeah.
because I'm only allowed like little amounts of time, I know now, well, I know that I can't spend that time thinking about this stuff. So it happens so quick in the morning. You got to get started, or else you'll
Yeah.
miss the whole window. So you do kind of learn to put those aside. So even though I bring it up, I will say that being doing this every day, making sure that I hit at least 2 minutes a day, and all of these other things that are kind of used to build this structure, they have really helped me. They've kept me from being overtaken by the doubts, which has definitely happened many times before for me. So even though they're there, they're not quite as strong as they've been before.
Right.
And I feel a little bit better equipped to deal with that way of thinking, at least. So it's still exciting. But I just wanted to bring it up.
Yeah.
It's still there.
That's a major part of it. Well, I'm glad you're really excited. I am too. Like I said, I had this week in particular was a little bumpy, but I kind of know what went wrong. And I think I should be pretty back on track next week. It helps to talk about it a little bit.
Well, I will also say that I am not to the hard part yet. When I start painting, I might start looking like a crazy person and just going insane, because all this drawing stuff and the research is pretty laid back, and you take your time.
Yeah.
There's, if you make mistakes, whatever. But if you're painting, you can end up having to trash stuff that you've spent, 40 hours working on. And it's just, yeah, just wait till then.
That's terrifying. Well, okay. But, the goal is to make it feel easy, right? So whatever. I mean, I'm not really to the hard part either. I'm solving these fun technical problems. And then when you start thinking about, okay, how do users perceive this, and what looks aesthetic, and what sends the right signals and whatnot, like that gets pretty ugly. And that would probably be my parallel for that. But the goal for both of us is going to be to make that feel easy and feel good.
Yep.
And maintain a flippant attitude about it, and just sort of move through it like we have other stuff. So that's the goal. And we'll see how it goes.
Sounds good.
All right. Thanks everybody for listening and getting our little update on the main quest. If you are working on your quest, if it's the main quest, awesome, tell us about it. But even if it's not, and it's something a little smaller, that's totally cool too. Let us know how that's going and what you think has kind of worked for you, and maybe what hasn't. We'd love to hear about it, because we're just trying to figure this stuff out for ourselves and for anyone else. So you can leave comments on YouTube. You can email us at the overanalyzerspodcast@gmail.com. It's hard to say. Sorry. And you can talk to us on Discord. But yeah, thanks for listening. We will see you next week.